hello everyone, and good afternoon, and welcome to all of you, whether you're here with us live this afternoon or whether you're watching this on catch up on the replay. It's really great to have so many of you with us. For those who don't know me, I know a lot of you are here for the first time because you're groupies of Matt's and he's brought you along today. So if you're here for the first time and don't know who I am, I'm David Miles, and I'm a digital marketing consultant on a mission to help mortgage brokers and financial advisors to generate more of their own leads online through various digital channels. So I'm really pleased today to be able to introduce a very special guest who's going to be taking over the session today. His name is Matt Chapman of MCAB, and basically what Matt doesn't know about protection policies and crucially how to sell protection policies as well probably isn't worth knowing about. I first came across Matt, I think we first met online a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, Matt, and I was struck straight away by, Matt was saying things about the art of selling protection policies that was like, oh yeah, that is just so different how everyone does it, and I can see how that'd be really effective. And I thought I have to get this guy along to give you guys some tips on how to sell more protection policies. I know that's something that a lot of you want to do. So Matt has very kindly offered to come along today, provide some free training for you all. He's also going to be coming back next month to do a more in-depth session for the members of my group coaching program, and we'll tell you more about that later on as well. But yeah, my role today really is just to introduce Matt, which I think I've now done, and hand over to him. The only other thing I'm doing really is monitoring the questions. So as we go through Matt's material today, if you've got any questions or any comments, pop them in the comments. I'll be keeping an eye on those, and when we get to the end, to the Q&A bit, I'll relay those over to Matt so that he can answer them. And if you are watching this on replay, still feel free to put questions in, because we'll both be keeping an eye on this over the next few days. And if anything new comes up in the comments, we will address that there. So over to you, Matt. Thank you very much, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, David. And well, good afternoon to everyone who's watching live, and obviously hello to everyone who's watching on catch up. So really, really grateful for you to have me on here today. What I'm going to do, if it's okay, is I've produced a little bit of a slide deck just to briefly go through, so to provide a bit of extra additional information as we go through. So I'm just going to share the screen. If you guys can just see that. There we go.
I'll hide myself so I'm not a distraction.
Perfect. Hopefully everyone can see that. So yeah, good afternoon. Like I say, everyone, thanks so much for having me on today, David, as a guest. I'm honoured to have been invited, and hopefully I can do justice to the opportunity that you've given me. Now, the name for today's session is Practical Tips for Selling More Protection, because I think we'd all like to do that, wouldn't we? But before we start getting into the detail, I just want to take a little brief moment to explain a bit about myself and why I'm hosting this session for you today. Now, I am a protection advisor first and foremost, so I'm just like you guys. I don't work for an insurance provider. I don't work for a network. Every day, I do the same job as you. And I talk to my clients about protection. And I absolutely love what I do. I am passionate about protection, and specifically the importance of building more financially resilient households, which I'm going to go through in a bit more detail in a moment. Now, today, really, what I want to do is help you guys to feel the same way as me about protection. Because when you feel the same way as I do, and you're talking about protection, it becomes second nature. It becomes like breathing. It just becomes enjoyable and a lot more rewarding. So my hope today, really more than anything, is to enthuse you, boost your confidence, and hopefully you'll leave today's session with new ideas and inspiration, and probably a more strong desire to talk to more of your clients about protection, and to do so with that passion and sincerity that's going to make all the difference. So the plan today is to share my experiences, my ideas, and some of the best practices that I've deployed to offer you guys some helpful, practical tips for selling more protection. And everything I talk about today is something that I've either applied myself or I've put into practice. These aren't just silly ideas that aren't proven. These are best practices that I've actually implemented that are hopefully going to help you guys make the most of the opportunities that you have, and to support you in getting even better at talking about and selling protection to your clients. Now, from my point of view, and this is a really important point, I just want to really hammer this home, selling protection, from my point of view, is an absolute no-brainer. If you think about what it means, right? What else, or where else can you do the right thing for somebody, offer them total financial security and peace of mind, and yet earn as much as we do in the process? And it seems ludicrous to me that more advisors don't prioritize protection recommendations or have that level of enthusiasm that I've got. But hey, that's no bad thing, because it represents a great opportunity for you guys on this session today. So now you know why I'm here. and what I'm hoping to achieve. Let's get cracking. Right, so what am I going to cover today? Firstly, I want to talk to you about how to identify new protection opportunities, because half the problem is identifying where these opportunities come from. I'm going to draw on some recent examples that we've had within our own business that will hopefully give you guys a bit of inspiration as to how you can go and create new protection opportunities. I'm then going to talk about the importance of financial resilience and how to achieve this for clients. Now, this represents probably the single biggest opportunity right now, especially in the wake of the COVID pandemic. Now, after that, I'm going to offer some fantastic tips and ideas on how you can leave today's session and go and generate some immediate return on investment through campaigns to your existing clients. After that, we'll talk very briefly about how to maximize each and every protection opportunity so you're getting the most out of each of your cases. And finally, a brief session on what to say, what not to say, and the impact of using the right kind of language and wording when talking to clients about protection. Right, for this first part, I want to share some of the new and exciting protection opportunities that exist right now. Now, some of them as a result of COVID, the result of the pandemic, and others have always been around. They're just waiting to be exploited. Right, the opportunity right now is clear. If there is one thing that the pandemic has taught us, it's just how essential our income is and how financially vulnerable we all are to income shocks. I mean, who could have genuinely predicted a global pandemic, or the fact that we would have been told we're not even able to go to work for a huge period of time? Now, the main positive of this is that those clients who would normally suffer from optimism bias, you know, the "it won't happen to me" crowd, and have that mindset, they will have just had an abrupt wake-up call. If you think about it, most people will have suddenly realized in quite dramatic fashion how much they rely on their income. Now, as advisors, I don't believe we've ever had in our lifetimes such a relatable example of why cover such as income protection and family income benefit is so essential for everybody. So the one positive of COVID, if there is one, is that it's highlighted how much we all rely on regular household income. Okay. Even more importantly, it has awoken so many people to consider how financially vulnerable they are and the need for financial resilience and the need to protect themselves from unexpected events and income shocks in the future. The fact is, the furlough scheme was essentially a glorified national income protection contract, and this just hammers the point home. After all, Rishi Sunak didn't offer to pay everyone one-off lump sums and wish us good luck, did he? No, he provided us with that regular income because that's what we all needed at that time of crisis. And every client you speak to will have either been on furlough or know someone who has. Anyone that received those furlough payments and had that luxury and security of knowing that all their bills were taken care of, even when they couldn't work, will no doubt see the benefit of an income protection contract. It's the same thing. And those that were self-employed or those that didn't get the benefit, oh my goodness. You see, they would have felt the pain more than anyone, right? And this gives you the perfect opportunity to discuss the need for income cover with them. And they're going to show greater interest and probably greater intent than ever before. So there's never been a better opportunity to discuss financial resilience solutions with your clients. The pandemic, if we're honest, it's provided the most relatable and contextual discussion point in living memory. And more important, it's one that's fresh in everyone's minds. It's a great opportunity. It's the perfect opportunity to reach out to existing clients to discuss their financial resilience needs. And we'll go through that particular opportunity in a moment in a bit more detail. The fact that unemployment insurance is also currently unavailable gives you another great avenue. It's a great chance to upsell or cross-sell to income protection or family income benefit cover. You see, in our business, we've had countless inquiries for unemployment insurance recently, but I've used this as an opportunity to promote the advantages of income protection instead. I've explained to those clients that are inquiring, even if you lose your job, if you're able-bodied, then chances are you can find some form of alternative paid work. Now, it might not be what you want to do, it might not be what you trained to do, or what you're qualified to do, but if you've got to pay the bills or feed your kids, you're going to do whatever it takes, whether it's a delivery driver or stacking shelves at Tesco's, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you've got to make an income, you're going to go and do something. But you see, at least you've got the choice, right? If you're ill or injured, it doesn't matter if you have a job or not. If you can't work and generate an income, you're stuffed either way. But it's really important to remember this, because when someone inquires about unemployment insurance, try to get to the bottom of what they're really worried about. And I'll tell you, it's actually the fear of losing their income, not their job. So there you go, the great segue into income protection. And here's an interesting fact. More people lose their homes each year from a loss of income caused by illness or injury than they do from redundancy. That's a fact. So in addition to personal protection needs, business protection also remains a hugely underserved market here in the UK. We've got nearly 6 million SMEs in the UK and very few people actually helping them. But if you think about it, last year, business owners, and even now, business owners have gone through so much stress and concern during this lockdown period, and it's highlighted that need for succession planning and greater financial security within the business. So this represents another great opportunity to make contact and discuss these solutions with business owners. Now, all of these represent unparalleled opportunities for protection advisors. And so many people I speak to right now are more acutely aware of their own financial vulnerability and all they want is someone knowledgeable and credible to show them how they can feel more secure again, how they can get back some peace of mind and financial resilience, how they can make themselves and their family feel more financially secure for the future. And that's where you guys come in. So take advantage. And if you forgive me for saying this, make hay while the sun shines. So now we know there's this incredible opportunity, right? How do we help our clients become more financially resilient and able to weather any kind of financial storm that comes their way? Where do we start? And why is it so important to focus on building that resilience? And remember, when I say financial resilience, I'm not just talking about income protection alone. It's all of the protection solutions we have at our disposal that provide clients and their families with essential financial support when they need it most. So think family income benefit, life cover, critical illness cover, children's critical illness benefit, private health insurance as well, not just income protection, whatever makes that household more financially resilient. The key here is to focus on what the household really needs, and then to help the clients see what that looks like, using the recent events of the pandemic as a reminder of why regular household income is the be-all and end-all. Now, the best way to help clients achieve this financial resilience is to make sure they've always got the regular income that household needs, no matter what life throws at them. Try to start thinking about possible outcomes first, okay? If you think first about what could go wrong and how you could potentially be leaving gaps in people's cover, it'll sharpen your focus. So focus on what people need and why a regular income is always going to provide a positive outcome. You see, if we focus on possible outcomes, we're more likely to protect people's incomes. Because by ensuring the client and their dependents always have the household income they need to pay the mortgage, the rent, the bills, the utilities, the groceries, all the other essential bills, you as an advisor have created the likelihood of a positive outcome when something goes wrong. And it's not a case of if, it's when something goes wrong. So whether it's a short-term injury, a serious illness, a car accident, cancer, whatever it is, or even death if you're applying family income benefit, the client and their family will be much more financially resilient and able to weather any shock that comes their way, provided they have access to regular income. The best way to think about it is this: regular income equals positive outcome. And one thing to remember, and it's really important, particularly for those mortgage advisors out there, these products are not linked specifically to any debts, nor do they require the policyholder to be a homeowner. They apply universally to anyone earning an income or that has a dependent partner or child. So why is my focus on income replacement products first and foremost? Well, because who doesn't need an income? Whether you're renting, whether you're living with your family or you've got mortgage debt, it doesn't make any difference, right? The need for income remains. So by focusing on what underpins the client's very way of life, their income, then you will be adopting a more holistic mindset. And ultimately, that's going to result in better outcomes for you, better outcomes for your client, and better outcomes for your firm. Now, when you do one of my MCAB courses, I frequently ask this question. It's a really interesting exercise for you to try, but it highlights why income and financial resilience is so important. I want you, whilst you're sat there watching this, to try and think of an eventuality, an incident, other than redundancy, that wouldn't be covered by a combination of income protection and family income benefit. It's very hard to think of one. Now, with that in mind, ask yourself a question. Ask yourself how many of your clients currently have income protection and family income benefit. Right? If the answer is very few, then actually you've got a fantastic opportunity to leave here today and to generate some immediate returns with very little effort. You should be looking to cross-sell to your existing client bank wherever possible. It's an untapped gold mine. Here's a simple and very effective way to do this. The very first thing you need to do is produce a report of all your clients who don't currently have income protection or family income benefit in place. Then reach out to each of them. Tell them that you've been thinking about them recently, especially through the pandemic. Remind them that no one could have predicted this event, and it's just highlighted how financially vulnerable we all are and how much we rely on that regular income. Explain that as a result, you're making contact with all of your clients to arrange them a personal, private furlough scheme. It's called income protection, and it's designed to help them become more financially resilient in the future. Reiterate that the most important thing for you is to make sure that they always have the income they need coming into the household, no matter what, to support them, maintain an acceptable level of lifestyle at all times. Explain that the beauty of income protection compared to furlough, for example, is that it doesn't just end in September. No, it can run all the way through to their anticipated retirement age. They can have lifelong financial resilience and total peace of mind. Explain that it isn't just for COVID either. No, it's for any illness or injury that stops them working. From stress to stroke, COVID to cancer, damaged leg to diabetes, whatever it is that stops them working, they could be able to claim a replacement income and potentially for as long as they would need it for. Now, for those with a dependent child or partner, or those who would need financial support after the individual died, you could also look at family income benefit too. After all, the need for income doesn't die with the client. The key here is to recognize that your clients will not be unhappy to hear from you. If you approach it that way and you're reaching out to your clients with that very message, I've been thinking about you, I've been thinking about your financial resilience, and I've got the perfect solution for you, they will be happy to hear from you because you've taken the time to reach out to them, to offer them something tangible right now, tangible to them, that's designed to provide them and their family with greater financial security at a time of great uncertainty. The best way for you to generate immediate returns is to consider how to increase that product density you've got with your existing client. And to do that, all you need to do is make your existing clients more resilient today. Now, here's a question for you. Be honest. Do you make the most of each and every opportunity that comes your way? Do you provide holistic advice, or do you tend to follow the path of least resistance, decreasing term mortgage, decreasing term critical illness cover? Do you speak to all your clients about all the protection products, all of the services you offer? Or do you tend to make negative assumptions based on your own prejudices? Do you ask for referrals? Do you ask for introductions? Here's some of the top tips I've got for making the most out of every protection opportunity. Firstly, life cover. You should always ensure that all life policies you recommend are placed into trust, so the client is truly protected. The benefit's not subjected to unnecessary tax, and the family receive the funds promptly, as intended. Now, a trust ensures that the right people receive the right money at the right time. And a trust ensures that the benefit doesn't form part of the estate, and it ensures that it reaches the chosen beneficiaries much sooner. But at the same time, more importantly, it provides you with the perfect opportunity to recruit new customers. You should contact each nominated trustee to explain their role as a trustee and confirm that their life cover is in trust, and if not, offer to review their cover or place it in trust completely free. Now, the reason this is important is because given that most advisors out there, and I'm being nice when I say this, don't necessarily put cover in trust, they fail to review their clients' policies regularly, and they often make substandard recommendations. This is going to create loads of opportunities for you to conduct full fact finds, full reviews, and identify, chances are, far more appropriate solutions for the clients that you're speaking to, these potential trustees. So ahead of time, get the client to know, or let the trustee know, that you'll be in touch and what a great service you provide. And trust me, when you pick up the phone, you're in. Building bespoke recommendations, starting with household income. Once you have the income protected and the client's more financially resilient, you can look at the other types of cover the client might want, and specifically what kind of financial support they would want in a variety of different scenarios, but safe in the knowledge that they'll always have the income they need to afford the associated premiums. That's an important point. You start with income, you're protecting all the other cover as well. But remember, the more personalized the recommendation, the more bespoke it is, the more it's built around the client specifically, the less likely another broker is going to come along and unpick it or rebroke it. And the less likely the client's ever going to cancel it because they remember why they took it. By getting that client engaged in the prioritization process specifically for those concerns beyond their income, it's going to help them and you to decide what's most important and what to compromise if the budget won't allow for it all. And building your protection recommendations into these prioritized channels this way will also allow for greater flexibility in the future should their needs, debts, or circumstances change. But guess who they'll be coming back to? And the more bespoke you make your cover recommendations, the more likely they're going to stay on the books, right? The more likely the client will value them because they understood why they were taking them out, especially because they were involved in the decision-making process in the first place, and they helped choose what was most important to them beyond that income. And doing it this way, you're forging these special relationships with each and every client by delivering personalized solutions that are built around them and their family and that offer them peace of mind. Get that client to help with prioritization, as they are more likely to remember why they took out those policies each year. And for that reason alone, it's more likely to stay on risk. And when you reach out to the client on every policy anniversary, and you must reach out every policy anniversary, you can remind them by signposting what that cover was originally intended for based on the conversation you had. I.e., remember £50,000 if Chris gets cancer so that Ginny can take 2 years off work. Whatever it is that they decide they want, that's what you put in there. These bespoke, tailored recommendations are much better for you, they're better for your client, and they're better for your business and your bank balance. Now, the most important tip I can give you, and this is a really important one, is to keep your eyes open and recognize every each opportunity that comes your way. Sometimes they're not immediately obvious, so you have to think outside the box a little bit. Firstly, make sure you ask each and every client for a referral. Most people know someone, a colleague, a friend, a family member, who needs protecting in exactly the same way you just did for them. Make clients feel like they've got the kudos if they recommend someone or they know someone who's going to need help and could become more financially resilient because they've signposted them to you. And remember, don't be afraid to ask, because if you don't ask, you don't get. It's as simple as that. But also make sure you pick up on the little signals and opportunities to make the most out of each case that comes your way. Right, here's an example of one that we had recently and how thinking outside the box turned one opportunity into many. Okay? I want you to think about what triggered the inquiry in the first place, or the life experiences that individual's gone to that drove them to speak to you in the first place. So here's an example. We were recently contacted by a client looking for income protection. He's a self-employed construction worker. When we delved in to find out what had made him suddenly consider this need for taking out cover, he'd been working for years, it was because a colleague on the site where he was working had had an accident, and he was now off work and wasn't earning an income because he was self-employed. But rather than just completing the sale and going, oh, that's a shame, off we go, leaving it there, we discussed it more. And I said, oh, I can't imagine you're the only person feeling that way. Right, and we asked the client if we could get an introduction to the foreman and the site manager so that we could speak to the entire site workforce about the situation that they were all aware of and what we could offer them to help protect themselves financially to avoid the same thing happening to them. Because this is so close to home to them all, and because it was a logical introduction, it's going to create countless opportunities. So whenever you come across a situation like that, get to the root cause of the problem and use that as a potential introduction or catalyst to offer value to a much wider audience. See, from my experience as well, when we've done webinars and presentations like that, a captive audience with a passionate group presenter yields incredible results, particularly if it's well-timed, contextual, and relatable, and it goes through something that they're actually experiencing or some pain that they're going through at that moment in time. Captive audience. Part of the reason I believe, anyway, I've been fairly successful in recommending protection in the past is not just the passion I display for the products and the relatable examples I use, but the way in which I communicate with my clients, the way I make it relatable, the way I describe the products and how they work, so that I get the client really bought into how it's going to provide them with tangible benefit. Now, after today's session, if you feel like it, why not take a little trip to my LinkedIn page, look at some of the posts that I've made in an attempt to try and break down some of these client barriers and make protection easier to understand. But as part of today's session, I provided a couple of practical little tips on how to talk about protection more effectively and why the simplest and more relatable explanations often work the best. So in order to get your client truly engaged in the protection conversation, you've got to make it real. You've got to make it relatable to them. It has to mean something to them. See, most people I speak to suffer from optimism bias. They don't actually believe that they'll ever be incapacitated, get cancer, or die unexpectedly, right? If I said to you guys on this session today, oh, half of us are going to fall down dead with cancer, right? Or half of us are going to get diagnosed with this. Because of optimism bias, the half of you listening, or pretty much everybody that's listening, is going to think you're not in the half that's going to get it. You'll be assuming it's someone else. That's how optimism bias works. And it's a psychological issue we have to overcome by making it real. So it's not necessarily about what might happen or what might get. It's like, what would you lose? What would you give up? How might this affect you? Right? So it's not just enough to highlight the need for financial protection. We have to make it real and relatable and contextual in other ways. Obviously, I've used the example of furlough recently. I've used the example of COVID because that's real. People have experienced it. They know what's going on. It's contextual. And in my experience, the most effective way of getting them truly engaged and for them to see the need for financial protection is to explain it in a way that they can not just relate to, but easily visualize. The simpler, the better. I often try to use examples that resonate with my client on a very personal level, focusing on what matters to them specifically and highlighting where their priorities might currently be a little bit misguided. For example, how much they value their mobile phone or their broadband. A recent survey between 18 and 35-year-olds said that actually their mobile phone is the one thing they wouldn't be prepared to give up. Yet, they're not considering what they actually use to pay and maintain access to the phone, an unprotected income. So sometimes it's going back to basics and understanding what their issue is and then relating it back to what you're trying to offer. And it's not about being patronizing or condescending. It's about providing those simple, relatable examples that mean something to each client you speak to. Ultimately, the client doesn't really care about the product, what it's called, how it works, or even essentially what it does. What they care about is what difference it makes in the real world. What's the tangible benefit? I often say things like, we all know someone who's had cancer or died unexpectedly, because in most cases, this is an invitation for the client to volunteer a friend or a member of the family or someone they know or love who has or is currently suffering. And this commonality between you and the client then helps you highlight the indiscriminate nature of illnesses and then obviously the need for protection as well. So where possible, use personal examples, horror stories or claims that you've had to process to drive the point home. Right? It's these shared personal experiences that help make protection conversations more engaging, more relatable, and more real. And as I've been doing my coaching sessions, right, I realize that there's as much work to be done in the language and the names we give to the products as there is in the sales skills that I try and coach people with. And several months ago, I mean, a lot of you will know this anyway, but I posted on LinkedIn and I referred to a question that we'd seen on the ITV, The Chase, where the contestants were asked, what insurance contract is often referred to as IP? Now, obviously, eventually they got it right, but they first called it insurance premiums and a few other things. And after a while, they eventually got it. But it certainly left me thinking there's a lot of work that we need to do in the industry to simplify protection for our average consumer. And sadly, you know this, you probably all do it yourselves, we tend to use overcomplicated language, jargons, and explanations. I mean, just look at the complexity of a key facts document. And this is supposed to be the simplified version that spells out simply how the policy works for a client. I mean, my goodness, it sends me into distraction. But I'm not naive, right? I understand that they have to do that for obviously for regulatory reasons and conduct risk and for fear of saying the wrong thing and being accurate with explanations. But sometimes going into too much detail can alienate the audience, right? And I know our products can be difficult to explain, and sometimes you've got to try and get into a bit of detail. But we need to think of the simplest way we can explain it. If you get into the simple nature of what it does, why it's tangible, what it will offer them, why it will benefit them, and you get into that real world benefit, then you can start to worry about the practicality of how the policy works, when it would pay, when it wouldn't pay. But even something as simple as describing the product or the name that we give to them, to get the client engaged in the concept first before you delve into the policy particulars. See, I've done this one before, but I've been recently thinking about how we rename certain products so we make the concepts even easier for the clients to understand. So we've done this before, we've shared ideas, we've said, well, instead of income protection, what about lifestyle insurance or private furlough or sick pay extender? Things that help people to understand what the product does. And like Ron said, it sort of does exactly what it says on the tin, right? And it's that simplified way of thinking that's going to hopefully resonate with more clients. It's removing the bridge between you and them. You're this advisor that has all this information. They're a client that doesn't really understand. And this information asymmetry is where the problem lies. So we have to educate and inform and simplify and distill. And that's how we get clients engaged in those conversations. If you get it on their level, use their language and make it easy to understand. Why not try it yourself? So after today's session, try and think of some of the creative ways in which you can describe some of the products that we talk about and recommend to our clients. Now, listen, I hope you've enjoyed today's session. I've only been speaking about half an hour or so. I tried to distill it down as much as I could. And the idea was to allow a bit of time for questions. And again, thanks so much again for joining me today. And obviously for you, David, for inviting me to speak. Now, remember, and it's really important, this is, the value of any session like this, whether it's David hosting or me hosting or anything, is whether you guys actually choose afterwards to go and elect to take any kind of affirmative action. So whether you go away today and you start a campaign to cross-sell to existing client bank, whether you remember to just put every life policy in trust and contact those trustees, or if you just book onto one of my other MCAB courses, please, I beg you, take some form of positive action, because it's those little changes that you make, those little steps, those little minute bits of action that make all the difference. And it's where I've made progress in the past, and hopefully you guys will too. Now, you may or may not be aware, but I offer scheduled coaching courses to advisors that want to enhance their expertise, improve their sales skills, and learn fun and engaging ways to sell a bit more protection. So the good news is that I'm offering a special discount code in a minute. All applicants that come on the courses receive a course booklet. They get live course support. We do a Q&A session. There are live sessions that we do. And we obviously add you to the Facebook group where you can post questions and get regular support and share best practice with other colleagues and people in the industry. I offer a total of 8 courses at the minute. There's probably more in the pipe, but the main ones that I do are an income protection masterclass, which is how to really get into the nitty-gritty of selling income protection with some great tips and techniques. I also do a protection basics course, which, don't let the name fool you, it's not just for beginners. It's really for anyone that wants to reignite that passion for protection. It's more motivational than anything else. And then on Tuesday, the 13th of July, you heard David mention this, I'm actually going to be hosting a free version of my mortgage protection course to members of David's PPC machine program. And it's normally worth £199, but what we're really doing there, and the purpose of that course, is to turn those conversations on its head, to help you to introduce protection much earlier on in those conversations so that you can maximize opportunities and actually complete sales even if the mortgage doesn't go ahead. So if you're interested in attending that, let David know. He'll be able to explain how you can qualify for a place on that course. I also do a course on income protection technical and family income benefit technical for those who are a bit unfamiliar with those products but want to get into selling them more, because as I said, they underpin all of your recommendations. I also do an introduction to business protection as well as a business protection masterclass. So if you want to look at any of the courses, just visit mcab.uk/events. You go to the site, you've got a lot more detail. You'll find course dates, scheduled courses, prices. Find any of the courses you want to do, add it to your cart. And if you use that code there, promo50, you'll get 50% off your first booking. This can only be used once, so be sure to add all the courses you want to do to the shopping cart before you apply the code. If you need help with anything, just let myself or David know. And obviously, don't forget, I also do private coaching and one-to-one consultancy if you prefer one-to-one support on that one. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you found it useful. And back to you, David.
Well, thank you, Matt. That was amazing. Fantastic. I'm almost inspired to go out and become a protection salesperson, advisor, whatever. But no, really, really good. I mean, I see we've got some questions coming in. If you've got other questions, then please do put them in the comments, and I'll just come to those in just a second. But I mean, there's a couple of things I wanted to just say stood out to me. I was scribbling notes and stuff as we went through, and I think I love the reaching out every anniversary thing, because I think it is very easy to take out these policies and they can be the best advised and the right ones for you, but people forget, 2 or 3 years down the line why they've got them. So that kind of thing I think is really, in fact, I had a conversation with my own financial advisor about a month ago, and I was looking at something. Now, I know there was a good reason why we took this one, but just remind me, that one was to cover this eventuality and pay this money for that. And it just took me a while to remember it. And with that kind of regular thing, in fact, those of you who were on the coaching call this morning where we spoke about email marketing, perfect example of where if you've got people on your email marketing system properly segmented, you could have those reminder anniversary emails going out automatically.
I think, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I was going to say there's a couple of really important tips on that one. So what I tend to do is when I complete a sale, I generally send it's like a little spreadsheet thing, a little table over to the clients, just with the various different policy details in, the policy number, the number they need to call, which is usually mine if they need to make a claim or anything. We put in the amount of cover, just as a summary, in addition to all the other stuff you do normally. But we also put a little brief description of what that policy does and why. As in, I just mentioned, it's to provide £50,000 so Ginny can take 2 years off work, just to reiterate why the client took it and what its value is and why it provides a tangible benefit. And now, obviously, if you're selling things like income protection, you ought to be doing annual reviews with the client anyway, because there may have been occupational changes, income changes, all sorts of different things. There may have been changes to expenditure. They may have got kids, their needs might have changed. And I've often found doing that annual review really helps to identify new and interesting opportunities. But really importantly, one of the biggest barriers for protection advisors for selling more protection is this fear that they're going to get clawbacks. Well, anniversary reviews is the absolute best way to avoid getting clawbacks. So bespoke recommendations, first of all, will reduce the risk. And secondly, by having that regular communication with your client is also going to help you avoid those clawback risks. So it becomes a zero risk model effectively. Sorry, David, carry on.
No, that's a really good point. Because I remember when I had my IFA firm, we did have 1 or 2 advisors there who didn't sell as many protection policies as I thought they should do. And it was, in one case, I remember the guy saying it was because of that. It was like, well, I don't want to sell it because, if they cancel you down the line, you're going to come after me for the clawback. So yeah, but so looking at the questions we've got here, so we've got one here from Darren. I like the way Darren's asked this question actually, because he bigs you up and then he comes in with the real
Darren Bradbury, is it?
So Darren says, I've done this for 30 years and been to many sessions hosted by insurers, but Matt puts this across way ahead of the insurers. I like his style, here it comes, and would like to know if there is some kind of discount for booking a number of courses.
I'm sure I can do you a discount. Darren, I'm sure we can do something, mate. I mean, Darren's a regular customer anyway. And
no, this is Darren Shepherd. Darren. Yeah, so Darren Shepherd, so Darren Bradbury, I think it's one you're thinking, as he said, I've been on 3 of these courses and they're fantastic for anyone.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, yes, Darren, absolutely. In fact, David and I were talking before the session. That's really kind of you to say thank you, by the way. David and I were talking before the session, and actually, I think what we're going to do is obviously when we do this free mortgage session for your paid members, for the subscribed members, I think
Darren is one of those people, by the way, so he'll get
perfect.
That.
We were going to put together a package, weren't we? What we thought might be the most suitable options for them to then maximize what they learn on that course, because essentially that mortgage protection course is introducing this concept that we can turn that conversation on its head. We really approach the protection conversation from a different route. And then what I'm going to do is in the other courses that I'll offer as a special package is where I'm going to get into the detail of how you gain competence and confidence to be able to do that routinely and consistently. So yeah, we'll put some together. But really kind of to say, Darren, thank you very much.
Yeah, and just like obviously to say, Darren Shepherd is a member of the Predictable Pipeline Program already, so do come along to that. Darren, if anyone else watching this isn't a member yet, you can join. It's I'll put a link in the comments, but you can join the program and then you'll get access to that free course, obviously on the 13th of July, isn't it?
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
So we've also got a question here from Gary O'Neill. He says, do you use any sales aids to engage with clients for each product? For example, IP, kick, term assurance. I'm guessing, are you talking things like sort of slides or things like that, Gary, maybe, but I don't know.
I'll be honest with you, Gary, I don't, right? Because I think what that tends to do, if you start to use sales aids, it can kind of detract from the key message you're trying to get across. My personal thoughts are very simple, that most people, when they speak to an advisor, and this is, I think, where we all kind of go a little bit wrong, they want to be told specifically what they need and also potentially what they don't need. So one of the best bits of advice I can give you is when you're dealing with a client, have the confidence and the self-assuredness to say, right, looking at your situation, I'm recommending you take this, this, and this because these are no-brainers, right? These are essential. You need income. Everybody needs an income, and explain why. The only kind of real sales aids I might use, and I say sales aids, it's more like a fact find, is I'll ask the client to fill in a health questionnaire and a budget planner before we even start looking at options. Because from my point of view, having an optimized process is just as important as giving good advice, because it enables me to understand what does good look like for this customer. So generally speaking, the best way to get that client engaged in that income protection conversation, for example, or that family income benefit conversation at outset, is to go, right, we all know how important income is. It's the very reason you get up and go to work every day, right? You don't do it for charity, you do it because you need to earn an income, because the fact is you've got bills, right? I can see what your bills look like. tell me, what amount would you need coming into your house every month for you to maintain an acceptable lifestyle? I can see you put down here £3,600, but is there anything here that you'd be prepared to give up? Now, what we're doing at this point is psychologically, the client's giving you the details of how much income they need every month to survive, which means they can then not retract from it. They're actually stipulating what they need, and then you're going to provide a solution that meets that need. But also what you're asking them to do is say, well, look, what are you prepared to give up? And then what we're doing is we're changing the psychology to one of, oh God, I've got to give things up. And they're realizing that if their income stopped, these things that they take for granted suddenly become non-options. So what we're doing here is, in terms of a sales aid, it's not really a sales aid. It's more about tapping into the psyche of the individual, understanding how do we position protection in such a way that the client doesn't see it as optional or nice to have or another expense, but fundamental and essential to their financial resilience, for them to achieve their life goals and maintain what's important to them every single month. There you go.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Gary says, I think as a follow-up to that, yeah, a good example I've seen is the Aviva Shield, which means you can cover all the main products.
Yeah. If you want to use a calculator, by the way, there's a really good calculator that Exeter brought out last year. In fact, they actually asked me to review it. The Exeter do like an income protection risk calculator, which is really good because it's one of the few ones that actually show you the income deficit. So you can put in obviously what they get in terms of sick pay or how long they'll be able to go and how much they earn each month and what their bills are like. And it shows you this really interesting thing. If you want to produce a report or something like that for a client, that's quite cool. A top tip as well, and I suppose it probably goes off the back of what you said, if you want to consider this as potentially a sales aid, a lot of the concern that clients have over insurance brokers is that we're not transparent, right? They think that we're trying to sell them something. So one, you've got to deal with that objection by kind of making sure the client understands, look, I've only got one objective, and that is to make sure you're financially secure. So I'll tell you, there's products over here that you don't need. You might want them, and we'll look at that in a minute, but you don't need them. There are a few priorities we're going to cover. So I'm not going to sell you things you don't need. I'm only going to focus on that first. If there's something else you want, we can talk about it. And the nice thing there is you kind of break down the barriers a bit in terms of, I'm a salesman. And what I've done recently, particularly with the advent of Zoom and things like that off the back of COVID, is I've said to clients, look, the best thing we can do is we'll start looking at some blue sky options, and then we'll set up a Zoom call, and I'll share the quote output with you so we can look at the different options together. We can tweak them if we need to, and I can point to you which ones you might want and might not. And the beauty there is I'm sharing the screen with the clients. There's total transparency. And they go, what about that one? And you go, oh, listen, you don't want that one. That's an age costed plan. So it means it goes up every year. You said to me, you'd prefer the idea. Oh, yeah. And what's happening there is that you're engaging the client in that decision-making process. You're being totally transparent, and they know you're not fudging figures. And that's a really interesting point because it helps with that psychological point.
Sorry, I was trying to multitask and listen
to you
and put something in the comments. So yeah, I'm just seeing if we've got other questions. I mean, one other thing actually that struck me as we were going through that, you mentioned something about mobile phone insurance, and it reminded me, I had a conversation with a mortgage advisor a few months ago who was saying, I just don't get it. People will insure their mobile phone, but cost 600 quid or £1,000 or whatever, but they won't insure their own life. And I said, well, I wonder if part of it is, it's almost like a selfish thing that with the mobile phone insurance, they might see the benefit of that one day.
Yeah.
If they lose their phone or drop it down the toilet or whatever. Whereas the one thing they're never going to see the benefit themselves is for life insurance. And I suppose that's the other thing that I'm picking up from what you said here by focusing on the whole holistic thing and the income protection. Well, obviously income protection, they could well see a benefit from that. Certainly more chance of seeing a benefit from that themselves than from the life insurance. So I think that's something that I would be taking away from this as well if I were an advisor listening to this.
Definitely. I mean, I think obviously making sure you've got a regular income is a tangible benefit, isn't it? I think it's one of those really interesting things. I did a thing on LinkedIn where I kind of like did this video where I was like looking around the room and I go, look, everything I can see from that monitor to that light to that mouse to that computer, it's all insured, but not the thing that pays for it. But weirdly, worse than that, not even the thing that pays for the insurance that covers that. So it's like sometimes you have to really bring the client in and almost use this simplistic argument so that you're not talking about the policy and what the policy does, because people, like I said, they're just not interested. You've got to get it granular and go like, look, you value your mobile phone, right? Okay, so how do you pay for your mobile phone? And just shut up. How do you pay for it? Okay, and you've got, oh, but I've got insurance on it. Okay, well, how do you pay for the insurance on it? Yeah. at the end of the day, right, correctly positioned, if I'm honest with you, correctly positioned, nobody, unless they're in a very unique situation, is going to argue with you that they don't need an income. Because I've used this one before and I've actually elaborated on it now. There are 4 basic necessities that we need to survive. Right? Heat, air, water, and food. Only one of them's free. That's what's scary, right? So I think it's just a case of helping clients to see how you can help them to prioritize. And like I say, there's a psychological element here, which is if you're talking to clients saying, look, I'm not interested in selling you crap you don't need, because you'd be better off putting money into the mattress. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you to understand, unlike other brokers you spoke to in the past, what you actually need, where your money really should be spent, and I'm going to put my balls on the line and give you advice. Because most advisors are petrified of giving advice, right? For fear of saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing or being held culpable. If you give holistic advice and you focus on income first and foremost, and you're covering as many eventualities as possible, the risk goes away. The risk goes completely away because you're saying, no, I'm making sure you've got what you need. And the client buys into this because they can see what you're really trying to achieve here. You're not just flogging them a kick policy that may or may not pay out depending on the condition they get. Not that there's anything wrong with kick, by the way. I want to be clear about that one. But what I'm saying is in terms of prioritization and helping the client to understand, well, look, if I spend some money, where's the benefit? What does it do for me? How does it help me? If you explain it in the right way, they will always buy it.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, Mark said, I think it was in response to that, this is when telling a story is very appropriate and letting the client almost, visualize them in that situation. But again, something we were talking about on that coaching call earlier, wasn't it, Mark?
Yeah.
Several people have asked if there'll be a replay of this because there's a lot of information. I want to be able to watch it again. So yeah, there will be a replay automatically via the power of Facebook. There'll be a replay available automatically straight afterwards. If you within the group, just click on, I think it's media and then videos, you'll see it there. And I'll cross post it to the predictable pipeline community as well. So people there can easily get it as well. I think that seems to be it in terms of questions. I'll just say this last bit slowly, just in case anyone has any last minute questions they want to chuck in. But it really just remains for me to say thank you ever so much, Matt, for coming along and doing that. It's been really great. People have clearly learned a lot. It's clearly sparked off a lot of questions and stuff. I've put the link in the comments there. So if you want to join the Predictable Pipeline program in time to have the even more in-depth session on the 13th, you can do that there. As I say, if you're watching this on the replay and you've got questions, put them in because we'll keep an eye on it. And we'll make sure that all Matthew's contact details are there. So if you want to contact him about booking courses, getting discounts for booking hundreds of courses all at once or whatever, then obviously that'll all be there as well. And I'm just laughing at Mark's final comment there, reverse the hearse and let them smell the roses. Well, yes, that's
I love it. That's brilliant. I love it. Fantastic.
And yeah, so and other people saying great session or whatever. So yeah, thank you ever so much, Matthew. Thank you everyone for turning up today and for taking part, and see you all again very soon.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Thank you.
Bye everyone. Cheers.